Welcome to the Missouri Freedom Initiative. Today is Tuesday, the 24th of October, 2023. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to make this a quick video, but I have a call to action. This is very important and it's very timely. So we need to get this information out as quickly as possible. So I'm going to ask you, first of all, to share this information with your Missouri grassroots organizations, no matter what they may be, and to make sure that your friends and family know about this as well, because we're starting the process of draining the swamp in the state of Missouri. Starts with this story here about Dean Plocher. Records show that Dean Plocher charged the state for travel already paid for by his campaign. The top lawmaker in Missouri House filed a false expense report numerous times since 2018 and began paying back the money he received last week. So he's starting to right a wrong, but it shows a pattern of behavior with Dean Plocher. We have lots and lots of stuff on Dean Plocher, lots of stories on Dean Plocher, particularly with our organization dealing with the Missouri legislature since 2020. But I won't go into that now. You can go back into the history of our videos and see, the problems we've had with Dean Plocher. But this article came out yesterday, and the fact of the matter is there is an ethics committee hearing in the House, Missouri House. Once again, we're not talking about D.C. politics. This is Missouri, Jeff City politics here. In the Missouri House, there's an ethics committee meeting that is happening on Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning. So we have a call to action on this, but we'll get into a little bit more detail on this a little bit, but through Jody Grace's blog. A big shout out to Jody Grace and the Missouri Freedom Foundation, by the way. Jody Grace's blog talks about this. The Missouri Speaker needs to go. The Missouri lawmakers should not be lawbreakers. Looks like it was going to be swept under the rug until the Missouri Independent published an article yesterday, and that's the 23rd of October, exposing the shenanigans of Missouri House Speaker Dean Plocher. I can't say that I'm surprised, writes Jody. Plocher has been quite a character while he's been in the House, and I'm not sure why our reps elevated him to speaker status in the first place. Frankly, they need to take some of the heat themselves, and I'll get into that in a second. They voted him in, knowing his character. Well, that's not entirely true. He was tapped for the position while he was still majority floor leader, a full year and a half before the official vote in January 2023. By that time, the new freshman representatives who were voting and weren't part of the tapping were bullied into believing he was the only choice, and they better go along to get along, which they always do, which is true. A lack of morals and near zero ethics for Dean Plocher. There's a lot more to read here, but as opposed to me reading it, check the description down below because the call to action is down further in the article. Plocher needs to be removed. Not from the speakership, from his seat entirely. Be no longer part of the General Assembly. So the House Ethics Committee is on Friday, October 27th. So we're talking literally today is Tuesday. So you got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to do the call to action. What you can do: call and email each committee member listed below. Request they remove Dean Plocher from his House seat entirely at their meeting on Friday. Rep. Hannah Kelly will be the one in charge in leading the group. Hannah Kelly was actually the assistant floor leader under Plocher when he was floor leader in 2020 and 2021 and 2022. So of note, she knows Dean Plocher. And they're partially responsible for this. So let me back up a little bit and explain that, because the call to action is to call and email each committee member listed below. I'm going to add something to Jody's blog here. Also call your rep if your rep is not on the committee. And the reason why is because almost every Republican in the House voted for Dean Plocher to be the speaker, and then also voted in H.R. 11, or House Resolution 11. And this was January 11th of 2023. So what they did, in essence, knowing his character, knowing his pattern of behavior, his pattern of corruption, they still voted him in because he's very powerful. He's got lots of corporate backing, for him as a, Speaker of the House. He's running for lieutenant governor as well. And corporations, big corporations love him. And so he is not a grassroots guy. He's a corporate candidate in Missouri. And he's been that way for a long time. Because he brings in so much money, he's able to donate a lot of money to, basically other Republican committees. And that's generally how people get elected to the speakership or to the floor leadership. It's a kind of a high school kind of popularity club. You know, who makes the most money, who brings in the most money, they're the most popular. So this is what I want to say. Dean has clearly made some mistakes here, and he's actually trying to make up for one of them here by paying back, you know, basically the state from the dual charging, because he did a lot of expense reports, you know, or expense, you know, vouchers or whatever you want to call it, to his campaign, and then he also did them to the state. So his campaign paid for them, and then he would also go to the state and then put that money in his pocket. Now, that's a form of money laundering, and it's illegal. You can't use campaign money, you know, for personal reasons. So, and that's essentially what he did. I mean, he's personally getting enriched, you know, from money that was paid for already by his campaign. He could do it one of two ways. He can charge these expenses to his campaign, or he can charge them to the taxpayers. He's doing it both ways. He got caught, and now he's trying to pay the state back. So that's interesting, you know, basically that he did that in the first place and had a pattern of doing it since 2018. So people make mistakes, but Dean is more than just making mistakes here. It's a pattern of corruption. There's so many stories with Dean I could get into right now, but if you've been following our channel for years, you know our problems with Dean. We have personal experiences and stories with Dean that go beyond what's been in the paper as well. But that doesn't matter here for the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is to let people know that they need to hold the House responsible for making the mistake of, number one, electing Dean as Speaker, and number two, giving up some of their power and giving it to the speakership in the form of H.R. 11, which makes Dean incredibly powerful and led to a terrible legislative season in 2023, including Dean shutting down SB 100, silver and gold. There were a lot of bills that weren't allowed to go through the House because Dean has that much power. So at any rate, I'm going to go back to this now. I make mistakes too. I'm going to give, you know, I'm ashamed and embarrassed to admit this. When H.R. 11 was voted on January 11th of 2023, I was so angry about it, I went to my rep. His name is Bob Titus. He's a great guy, by the way. And I unloaded both barrels on him. You know, I was just that upset. I didn't take time to cool off because he voted for it. Most Republicans did, almost all of them with two exceptions. And Chris Sanders and I believe Cherie Tolson-Reich are the only two dissenters to H.R. 11 on the Republican side. I don't know the Democrats voted for Plocher as Speaker or for H.R. 11, but it matters not because they're only 33% of the legislature. They can do it easily with the Republicans. So what I'm saying is I unloaded both barrels on Bob. I yelled at him. I screamed at him. I said terrible things to him. And I had to go back 2 weeks later and apologize and say how sorry I was. And I really did mean it. And I needed to do that. And the reason being is because I made a mistake. And I'm an expert at making mistakes, by the way. But luckily, Bob forgave me because I talked to him 2 weeks later and said, you know, I'm really sorry. Well, it's time for the people in the House to admit their mistake of, number one, electing Dean, knowing what his character was, knowing about the history and the pattern of corruption, and then giving up some of their power to him, you know, through the form of House Resolution 11, or what we call the Plocher rules. House Resolution 11 was basically the standard by which the House would operate, you know, business, the Missouri, the people's business in the state of Missouri. And that's something where they gave up some of their power and gave it to Dean. And so your representatives that voted for Dean and voted for H.R. 11 need to correct their error. And that's why we're calling and emailing everyone here that's in this ethics committee, plus your rep, if your rep isn't on this committee, if they're Republican, because I don't think any Democrats voted for this stuff. Democrats are just sitting back and laughing their butts off. But guys, you have to admit your mistakes, and then you have to correct them. And that's what we're asking the House members to do. The Republican members of the House, admit your mistakes, and then let's go ahead and correct it. Let's unseat Dean Plocher from the House of Representatives completely. Let's get rid of that part of the corruption. Let's drain that little section of the swamp here. Number one, we get to drain the swamp a little bit in the state of Missouri if we can get rid of them. But number two, we send a message to the other swamp creatures up in Jefferson City and the corporations that are looking for the next guy to give, that much money to so he can be that powerful and totally control everything in Jeff City. Let's send a message to the corporations too. So please do share this with everyone. Share it as much as you can on all your socials in Missouri. And then number two, make your phone calls. Do your emails to everyone. And let's go ahead and take care of this business and literally before the 2024 legislative season starts. Thank you very much for your time. I'm making this short. May God bless each and every one of you. Please, please take action on this. Let's do the right thing. Let's ask our House reps to do the right thing. May God bless each and every one of you. Take care, gang.